late after game one. Michael Rand here, Chip Scoggins with me as well. I was at home for this one. Chip, you were in the building at Target Center. I didn't get a great feeling from the jump of this one, and I think that bore itself out. Dallas just kind of had something going. Just felt like everything was a little bit easier for them tonight. Not that they didn't earn it, but it just kind of felt 108, 105 Dallas win. Not a fluke, not like a stolen win. They just kind of played better.
They played better, shot better. Both Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns afterwards talked about they thought they were tired.
They looked
They
tired.
played a step slow, and they looked that way. And maybe that wasn't to be. That was the one thing we didn't know is how would they respond after such a, emotional, tough series against Denver, where you have this, historic comeback in Game 7, and the first two series before Phoenix and before Denver, they had 4 or 5 days to kind of regroup physically, emotionally. This one, they had just a couple days, and so I thought Ant particularly looked lethargic.
He did.
He just settled for jumpers. Of his 16 field goal attempts, 12 of them were outside the 3-point line.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just the ball in his hands and just trying to figure out. He was indecisive and just shot threes and didn't really attack. Now, some of that they said was the way that Dallas defended them. Their bigs dropped back, and so I think they protected the rim a lot better than Phoenix and Denver did. So they were curious, being out here the last couple of days, they were curious to kind of see how Dallas would defend them. But overall, I just thought it was a very sluggish game by them on both ends, and they really have to figure out defensively what they're going to do because Dallas shot horrendously from 3-point, and they made a couple late, but you look at the points in the paint, that's not going to work. They outscored Minnesota 62-38 points in the paint.
Yeah.
And that just came off penetration, not being able to keep Luka and particularly Kyrie in front of him. And they just broke it down. Either they scored or it led to dunks by their big. So if they're giving up 62 points in the paint, they're not going to win.
No, they're not going to win. And they're not going to win if they don't at least get a little bit closer in the kind of star player, two-man game matchup. I mean, they got, Luka was a little hot and cold early, but he was great in the fourth quarter. He made winning plays. He made shots. He made 2 huge defensive plays. I'll get to that in a minute, but just in general, he and Kyrie had 63 combined, and Ant and Cat had in the 30s,
35,
right? Like you can't win.
Yeah,
you're not going to win if they're not playing better like that. I think it was, a little bit of a hangover from the Denver game. It was just, a couple nights ago, and they're tired. It's also, Ant trying to chase Kyrie around everywhere. I mean, that can't be easy, but it was a weird energy. They just didn't have kind of that swarming energy on defense that they have had.
Well, you're right. If you just boil it down to both teams have 2-star players in these tandems, and Dallas won round 1.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyrie and Luka combined for 24 made shots.
Yeah.
Cat and Ant combined for 12. They doubled them up on made shots, and were just a better tandem. And so I thought Ant particularly looked tired. Cat just didn't make shots. I mean, he was 2 of 9 from 3. And one was that really deep one late in the fourth quarter.
Which gave him a lead,
that was going to give him a lead, get him over the hump. But Kyrie really, first half, he was just electric.
Yeah.
We know he's an all-time shot maker, and we saw that in the first half. Luka didn't shoot the ball well. I think at one point he was like 1 of 7 from 3, finished 3 of 10, but he had that 7-0 run by himself that was part of that 13-0 run that really they took control of the game, and he's so crafty and getting the guys on his back, as he's just kind of methodically working his way down there. So they have to defensively. This was not the Wolves team that we are used to seeing. But they're going to have to figure out, Ant normally can use his physical strength to body guys defensively. It's not going to affect Luka. And Kyrie is so fast, it didn't have much effect on him. So Uh, that's the one thing you have to be concerned about if you're the Wolves is like, how are you going to stop those two? And I think, some of that is fatigue. I think it's just obvious. You saw that they weren't as sharp as they are. But if they can't keep them in front of them, it's going to lead to these points in the paint and break down their defense like we saw tonight.
Well, and you made a good point too. Like with the fatigue, I mean, it's going to work both ways, I'm sure, throughout the whole series. But they don't have these big breaks anymore. It's an every other day
Yeah,
series that they're playing, and which it should be. But you had that weird gap in the Denver series of 3 off days, and then you had, I think, 2 off days before Game 7 in that series too, if I'm not mistaken. You went
correct. Yeah,
couple days, so they kind of get able to gather themselves a little bit more, and then obviously plenty of time after sweeping Phoenix to get ready, and all that time off before playing Phoenix because they weren't in the play-in this time. So a lot of different kind of things that were keeping them fresh. They won't have that anymore, so they got to kind of find some legs, figure out how to do that. And maybe those legs show up in the fourth quarter. Chris Finch, I want to play a quote from Finch, head coach Chris Finch, really quick right here.
Terrible offense down the stretch. Bad shots, turnovers, no composure. And thought for the same at the end of the first half. We haven't really closed quarters very well, closed halves very well over the last handful of games. It cost us one game in the Denver series. And that certainly had an impact on this game tonight too. So we got to be better in clutch moments.
The end of the first half, they have kind of a silly turnover. They're up 6. Looks like they can go into the break. At worst up 6, maybe up 8. They get a turnover. Kyrie gets a 3-point play. All of a sudden, it's 3 at the half when Dallas hasn't really done much. And then end of game. I mean, for as good as Jaden McDaniels was in this game,
I know the turnover.
the decision to get up in the air with really nobody to throw to,
nowhere to go. Yeah,
it's like him and Rudy Gobert. It's like what good is going to happen even if he completes that pass? But you got 2 guys standing down there. Luka picks off the pass, and Luka makes a great defensive play on the next sequence too to break up the lob from Conley
to break up the
Gobert.
lob. Which had been effective a couple. I mean, I think Gobert had a couple alley-oop dunks from Cat. So that was the Conley pass, I believe, right?
It was the Conley pass. That was the Conley pass.
Yeah. So Conley had turnover. The Jaden one was really bad. Because they were down 2 points at the time.
They were down 2 when Conley had the turnover. They were up 1 when Jaden made the turnover, and then that led directly to that.
That's the
PJ Washington corner 3.
That's
think.
It. Yeah,
that was the game to me. That sequence.
Yeah, Jaden just drove in there with nowhere to go and just kind of jumped and we saw Ant did that in the fourth quarter too, where he finally was driving in there and then he whipped a pass back out to Towns at the 3-point line. It was wild. It went into the stand. Yeah. So. Just the killer turnovers, and they, end of half execution has not been good for this team.
No, so Finch said,
yeah, and so they got to clean that up.
Royal Credit Union's Smart Checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union Smart Checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Didn't feel like a fluke kind of game. It doesn't feel, we're definitely not sitting here saying this thing's over. It's not. I think we've learned our lesson if we didn't already know. Like this could be, just the first of many kind of a feeling out game. But like what, as we think ahead to game 2 Friday, what can they change? What how do you think they tried to, aside from getting more energy, what do you think they try to do to attack Dallas a little bit differently?
Yeah, I think they have to swarm more defensively like they're used to. I just think they were a little behind everything. And how much of that is fatigue, Mike, and how much of that is Kyrie and Luka are really good? I mean, that's the one thing that's hard to know. I mean, those 2 players are great. And so, this is a tough matchup for them, but it's a weird game because, Mike, the Wolves made 12 more 3-pointers than Dallas. Yeah. Which, if you just said that, like one team makes 12 more threes,
they also think it's took be a 49 of them, right? I mean,
which is
And Finch said, "I thought there was more of them out there. Like, how many are you going to shoot next game? Like 60? I mean,
so, but I think the Wolves will play more, desperate, have more energy, all that.
Yeah.
I think there is something too that they looked a little tired, but I don't think Dallas is going to shoot that poorly again from
That's the
3-point.
problem. Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
the
at one
problem.
point they were 2 of 15.
Yeah.
PJ
3 of
Washington, who's
19.
done a
Yeah.
good job of shooting, he had a tough time. Luka had a tough time. But I don't think the Wolves are going to give up 62 points in the paint again. I don't
No,
think. But the thing is, like, this is not the same Dallas team that the Wolves faced all year.
not even close. Yeah.
You look at what the additions they did at the trade deadline and the size that they added. They're long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
defensively, I think they've got to figure out. Finch said he didn't feel like the pick and roll affected, because he talked so much yesterday about pick and roll and how they're going to defend it, as much as it just was straight up penetration.
Yeah.
So maybe if they feel, if they get their legs back and they're not as tired, maybe they can keep them in front of them a little bit better.
Yeah.
I want to see what they're going to do with Ant, because I thought Ant was really indecisive about whether he should drive, pull up, pass. I just think the way they played, because both Denver and Phoenix kept their bigs up. And so I think it created more opportunities for him to drive. These guys really protected the rim a lot more. And so I want to see what the adjustment that Finch and Ant make in terms of, because he's just, I mean, it plays in, he can make out, 3-point shots, but when he's effective is when he's putting pressure on the defense. And I don't think he did that really at all tonight.
What was the energy like at Target Center tonight? What would you sense? Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was so start was great, and then when they made some runs, when Towns made that deep three there in the fourth to give them the I think it was 99-98, that place exploded. And I think they were just ready to take off then. And but it was just, they kept giving up just those back-breaking, Kyrie took it away from them, and Luka made tough shots.
Yeah.
So you got to credit Dallas. I thought they executed their game plan. They did what they do well. I think a lot of people probably underestimated how different Dallas is now.
Yeah.
Because of, maybe what they saw from them if they watched the Wolves all year.
Yeah.
This was not. It's not going to be an easy series. I mean, people were talking about just because you beat defending champs, this is going to be somehow a lesser of a challenge. Not with the way Kyrie's playing, and Luke is obviously a very, he's one of the elite of the elite players. So I'm curious to see kind of what the response is Friday night. I think the energy will be better. I think we saw this from Game 3 in Denver when Ant said he was flat and he took ownership of it. He came out in Game 4 and they lost that game, but he scored 44.
Right.
So we'll see if he has that kind of response too. But unlike Phoenix had Durant, Denver had Joker.
Yeah.
Dallas has two of these guys.
Yeah.
Two of these superstars.
And they're perimeter guys. I mean, guys that can hurt you differently. It's just a different kind of matchup. I mean, Phoenix and Denver weren't necessarily similar, but Dallas is just a different team than the team they just played 7 games against. Denver's got they obviously have Jokic, but they've got very little other inside presence. So whenever Jokic is off the floor, they don't draw him out. Like, you could get inside. You could get to them that way. And Dallas's strategy seems to be pretty clear. You're either going to have, Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively back there protecting the rim. And then whoever's guarding Ant, there's going to be another half a guy kind of poking his head into those gaps and not letting him penetrate. It's just going to make it really hard on him. So, some of it was the threes are what's there. You live or die by them. And they were, they ended up shooting 37% from 3. It wasn't like they were red hot, but it's also that's probably about what they would shoot on a normal night. But if you're shooting 49 of them and then you go cold at the wrong time, then, hot or cold is going to kind of tell you the story of the game. And if you're just kind of okay on it, that's going to tell the story too. Maybe a couple final thoughts. I'll let you go. One, I feel like they've played better all year when expectations were a little bit different. The Phoenix series, everyone's Phoenix Phoenix might roll them, even though they're the lower seed. They beat them 3 times in the regular season. Then the Wolves, come out and kind of defy those expectations. Same thing with the Denver series. Like every time there was that kind of element of doubt is when they started playing better. Maybe they can channel some of that energy into game 2, but it's an interesting thing. They don't seem to prosper quite yet when they are kind of in the driver's seat. These last 2 series so far, at least.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the desperation factor. Maybe it's human nature. Maybe it's the Phoenix series is so weird because I just don't think Phoenix. They're kind of a dysfunctional team. I don't know how serious of a team they are.
Yeah.
Denver's really good. You're not going to.
Right.
And this team, obviously, with Kyrie playing that way and Luka.
Yeah.
That's a really hard team. And I like their complementary parts. I mean,
too.
Gafford and Lively are really active.
Yeah.
And they're so much better defensively now. But you're right. Watching Ant when he'd have the ball out top, he'd have the guy defending him, and then there'd be almost like a triangle. Those guys were waiting to slide into that gap, and so maybe figuring out a way to get Conley the ball more and kind of have him play Ant be able to play off it a little bit more. I think you'll see a more desperate team. I don't think you'll see. I don't think there'll be any sort of panic.
No, I don't think
because
so
they lost one game because they've shown that they can respond all year to a bad game. They've shown that they've been mature in different situations. Obviously, when you come back and you win the last 2 games against Denver and the way they've done it, that it takes some maturity there. So I don't think I'm going to say, it's just because they're all tired, because I think that discredits Dallas by saying that. I think there was some fatigue there. They just didn't look sharp or particularly aggressive tonight the way they normally do. So I think you get a better effort, but again, they have to figure out Kyrie and Luka, because if they're able to break down that defense like that and get that many points in the paint, that's just not going to work. I mean, and that's something that they really have to focus on tomorrow in practice and film session, and then be better at it Friday night in game 2.
It's a game of adjustments. It's a game of coaching. It's a game of a lot of different things. You're right. We'll see what happens in game 2. Chip Scoggins, appreciate you sticking around, helping me out with this special edition of Daily Delivery. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Chip, we'll talk to you down the road, probably after Friday's game.
Sounds good, Mikey. Thanks, man.